2010. And I have to admit that when I was sitting in your chair, I was extremely skeptical. I started out working for Lehman Brothers out of graduate school at Vanderbilt, and all through school, and I think Russ talked about this, I was taught that whole life insurance was just a terrible investment. You do not put your money in whole life insurance, and I was taught more of the traditional methods. And after, I guess, a long time of kind of investigating this, what we realized was that it really works. And the way we got introduced to it was actually through our accountant. So it came from a really credible source. And if any of you guys are going to go to the Economic Summit tomorrow at Home Builders, our accountant is Clay Hagler, who will be speaking there at the Economic Summit. And he came to us with this idea as we were investigating 401ks. And it said, I ran into a guy named Russ Morgan. He presented this idea to me, and for the last 6 months, I've been trying to poke holes in it. And he goes, I tell you, I've researched this for 6 months, and I haven't been able to find a problem. I just don't understand how it doesn't work. And in fact, I just bought a policy for myself. So Russ and I got to doing the homework on it. And since 2010, we've been investors in these policies, and it's working just as we thought it would, honestly. So, I guess we're here to talk about some more specific examples of how we're using the policies, and how we're making them work for us. And it's been really, really interesting because really the possibilities are endless. But in the home building business in particular, I think it's especially relevant. I mean, for home builders, banking is our lifeblood. If you don't have banking, you're not in business in home building, right? I mean, I think you guys can attest to that. So becoming your own banker, even if it's just for a small portion of what you do, and taking back some of that interest that normally would be going to the banks, it's really liberating, and it's really profitable.
And plus, like Russ said about being able to be liquid, I mean, if there's a land deal and, basically we can close in 30 days and you don't have to get appraisals and don't have to go through all the A&D loans. It's extremely lucrative.
Well, and you don't need approval from anybody except for yourself. You see something, you see a lot that you want. I don't have to go talk to anybody except for that guy right there. Once we decide on a purchase that we want to make, if we're using whole life, that's all we got to do. We write the check, and it as these guys have been talking about, as Russ and Joey have been talking about. I mean, our policies continue to grow, so we have more and more access to capital that we don't have to go talk to our banker for. All right, so that's what we're here to talk about: is how are we using this? And I'd say again, for home builders, lot purchases is a great example. We've done that many a time, where we see a lot, we say, hey, we want that lot, let's go write the check. We've used it for, what else? For our office building.
Yeah, our office building. Micah Jaime, I have a mortgage on his house. He pays me a monthly payment every month. Now, granted, if he defaults on it, I mean, I can foreclose and take the house back, which right now would work out great because the house has gone up a lot in value since he bought it. But I'm just not going to do that. But
Wow.
And let me ask you guys this. I mean, how many?
Sound like a banker. I don't know.
I mean, how many of you guys, as business owners, are afraid that there's going to be another economic downturn? Or are you afraid there's going to be a lawsuit that takes you out one day? Who knows? But how great is it to be able to have access to capital that is creditor-proof, right? That you can access anytime. I mean, that was for me, that was one of the things that sealed the deal. I was like, well, if my creditors can't access this money, this is a no-brainer. So I think, one of the best ways that I've used the money is I've taken some of that and actually partnered with a friend of mine who also is a client of Russ and Joey, who employs the infinite banking concept. We bought a lake house together. So, Will, that lake house that you were watching out for the other day, thank you, by the way. That's paid for with a whole life policy, 2 whole life policies actually. One's mine and one's his. But do we have a mortgage? No. Did we have to ask anybody? No. Do I get enjoyment for my family for years to come? Absolutely. Am I paying myself interest on that money and still have a death benefit for my wife? Yes. Nobody can take that. If we have an economic downturn and I don't have the money to pay the interest one year, I can pause. I don't have to. So it's a really, really liberating tool, as I mentioned, and has multifaceted benefits. I mean, that's just one way to use it. But again, I mean, there is innumerable ways. We've been at conferences where people have thrown out other, there's a million ideas. It's just how you choose to invest that money.
It's great to use it on yourself, but if you can loan others money, you can make their money in interest rather than your own. I mean, it's simple as that. I had a friend of mine. I mentioned this, when we first started. I mentioned it to him, and he told me I was crazy. And then next thing you know, about four years later, actually, it was last year, they were meeting with y'all's old company, and next thing you know, he's got a policy. His wife has one on him. His dad has one on him, and they have one on their three brothers and sisters. So everybody's got them now. So.